What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Nate and Herms show. It is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. I had a kid's Christmas program tonight, which, Herms, it had nothing to do with Christmas. It was a pajama party. It was cute, though. I mean, seven-year-old kids, they don't have the best voices, a little crackly. They don't pay attention. My kid was the one tossing his slippers up in the air when they were supposed to be
Love
still.
that.
I mean, you know Jackson, of course.
Yeah, that's true. He's got to keep it on brand and really live up to the Polvogt name. That's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, be erratic and a little bit crazy, but make good calls at fantasy football, which he does. It's the weirdest thing. Like he'll pick like two players a week where he's like, these two guys are going to do good. He started the Tyreek Hill resurgence. He called it. So I don't know, man. Maybe we need to get him a show.
I mean, it's not the worst idea I've heard.
Dude, we've got the Sneaky Girls, who I think are having Stefania Bell on this week, which is pretty dope. Very proud of them. What an arc. I think they're 12 now. They're stars in the making. They're like little Hutchinson Browns.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We got some comments in the chat already. We've got Jamie Prague, my guys. What is up, Jamie? If you notice, I'm wearing the old school Guardians hats from back in the day, from some trips to Cleveland. Got it at the airport. I've been sick the past couple of days. Glad you're feeling better, man. Glad to see you turning out here. I've got Toronto Dave with the party emoji. What's up, buddy? Up there in Toronto, Canada. We've got Ross H over on YouTube. What's good, Ross? Thanks for tuning in, man. We love it. Albert Mariquin saying hello, everyone. And then we've got the man from down under, Brad Bolt. Good evening, studs. Optimus NFL show coming back very soon. We're looking forward to it. The fantasy season is almost over, man. Like, we're in the playoffs. Some of us are in the playoffs. I got bounced from Scott Fishbowl this week.
Ooh.
Wah, wah. It was bad too. I missed the cut line by like 14 points, but they like punched me as like 785 or something. Like, not even close to that 500.
Jeez, well, at least you made it, because this is only the second time in my Scott Fishbowl history that I did not make the playoffs. Although I think that was due to I did make it. I just didn't make it past the first round. I was like barely under the threshold to make it through. And it's only because of the bye week issues that everybody had. So I didn't have Lamar and it was just like, you've got to be kidding me. It's so irritating that the NFL would schedule such late bye weeks to just screw with all of us. I'm not going to be over it until next year.
Look, this is the first time I've ever made Scott Fishbowl playoffs. Was really stoked. The bye weeks were just murderous for me. Murderous. They murdered me in King's Classic too. Got bounced from the playoffs. I was in line to be the 5th seed 2 weeks ago. Bye weeks just crushed me. Absolutely crushed me. So
rough, man. It's so rough.
Yeah, I was I'm second to last place in my home league. Thanks, Christian McCaffrey and Tua.
Yeah, dude,
Tua getting hurt.
I came close though. I ended up finishing 6 and 8, but like my points for was like low key, like kind of decent. I'm a little disappointed I didn't do better in that league either, but we'll bounce back and get them next year. I believe in ourselves.
Something I'm doing next season, I'm going to cut out some dynasty leagues. I just think I overstacked during the pandemic, and a lot of them are dying. I know you and I are in a handful of leagues where I think we're looking at the kind of waning interest from some of the people in the leagues, and like it's fun being in like 30 leagues, but then also that's a lot of leagues to manage.
Okay, so this is something that I think would be really interesting to talk about, and I want to pick up the baton with that. But before we do, I just want to remind people who are tuned in or watching, if you have any questions or any sort of trade questions, lineup advice, whatever it is that you're seeking, be sure to drop that in the comments. we're going to be hanging out talking about a bunch of stuff, including how to handle a Dynasty League ending, because I think that'd just be so much fun. But while we're talking about it, feel free to just throw some stuff in there. Like, we will absolutely pause at key times, make sure that we're serving you as well, because we may have some of our fantasy teams out of the playoffs, but if you're still in it, we are here for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm still
So
plugged in. I'm still plugged in.
Exactly.
I just was pointed out by our boy Brandon Lane over there, Chubbsburger. Did you guys swap identities tonight? Look, dude, it's been a long day, I think, for everybody. We're getting close to Christmas. It's a long day for Tyler because he's trying to decide Herms, Hawkinson, or Otten. Otten has been kind of like dead weight since Mike Evans came back. Is there any chance of resurgence this week? Are you going?
I mean, Otten's weird. So he still gets some opportunity here and there, but like I wrote about this because he's been specifically bothersome. So last week he did fairly well, kind of made managers feel comfortable with I think it was like 8 or 9 points he put up or something, but a lot of that was on like one 44-yard catch. So let's not get too carried away with it. Outside of that play, he only had 2 other targets in the game. And the really frustrating thing is that over his previous 4 games now, he's converted 13 of 22 targets, despite having a catchable target rate of 81.8 from Baker Mayfield. Like, you can't have that kind of drop rate and justify continuing to get the ball. And like Sterling Shepard is starting to see a little bit more target work more often. Jalen McMillan went off. Like, I think the team is looking to diversify away from Cade Otton being the secondary option to Mike Evans for this reason. So even though Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are ruling the earth right now, there's still enough work for Hawkinson by comparison, and we do know that he is considerably more steady-handed.
Okay, so who would you start? Iggy wants to know here. Ferguson or Hawkinson?
Dude, I believe more in Hawkinson. Also, just because, like, Schoonmaker, low-key, is not going away in Dallas. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be, like, I don't think he's going to be a huge deal necessarily. I'm not saying he's fully threatening to take away Ferguson's entire job, but like, he's done well in some of those relief duties when Ferguson was still dealing with that concussion protocol and everything. So like, it's tricky there, man. It's tricky.
I've got Ferguson at tight end 11 this week. I've got Hawkinson at tight end 5. So I'm going Hawkinson over Ferguson.
I think I have it about the same. Yeah.
Dude, look, it's not a good matchup for Dallas this week. It's not a good match. Well, it's Carolina. It's actually a pretty good matchup, but it's never a good matchup for Dallas. I don't trust that offense. Plain and simple. And script wise for Ferguson, it's probably not great because Dallas should be out ahead, or they might be fighting for their lives against a Carolina team that has actually been oddly better as of late. What do you make of that?
That's very true.
Speaking of which, like, did Bryce Young figure it out? Is that what's going on?
I gave him a little bit of a shout out in my rankings article this week. So since week 12, he ranks 10th or tied for 10th in EPA per dropback with Joe Burrow. Like, it's working out pretty well. Shout out True Media for that information. And then also 17.6 fantasy points per game in 4 point per passing touchdown. It's only QB 16, but compared to where Bryce Young was and this idea that we had, to what's going on now, he is performing well above a lot of people's expectations. Or here's another way to phrase it. He's playing up to his previous expectations. I think that's probably the better way to look at it, because a lot of what we're seeing, especially within this last month span, he's a lot more poised, and you see more of the confidence in him stepping into the throws and dedicating to the reads rather than being sort of like skittish and kind of like, because like the O-line is a little bit better. So that's definitely part of it. But you can see a difference just like with how he's even carrying himself and delivering a lot of these throws with a lot more certainty.
So something Mike Reedy and I talked about yesterday on the Waiver Wire show in relation to Bryce Young is that the offensive line play has been better as well. And it's been fairly noticeable. He's had a little bit more time. He's been able to kind of like actually scan the field for a second. Does Dave Canales keep his job, first of all? Because the season has been a lot of a disaster. You think he gets a year 2 from David Tepper?
Dude, I think even though they've lost a lot of these games recently, they've been very close. They have taken teams like the Chiefs to the brink, and I think that shows enough growth to at least earn you another season or two. You're right. Like, there were early in the season, it felt completely just dire straits. This whole thing, burn it to the ground, move on. But at least it's encouraging now. At least we're seeing signs of things coming back to life. And also, Adam Thielen returning to the lineup has been important. And if you look at how involved he has been just over the last 3 weeks in this offense, it is so hard to ignore him as a reliable fantasy option in this playoff that we find ourselves in now. So since week 12, this dude leads the team in targets, 25, and has 86 receiving yards per game, all to the tune of 17.3 PPR points per game. Wide receiver 15 in that span, folks. If you did not already pick up Adam Thielen, just by now he's definitely rostered in a lot of leagues. But like, still, if you have him, start him. That's probably the better message. But yeah, dude, he's been awesome.
So you pointed out he's got the 25 targets the last 3 weeks. But I want to point this out. 21 of those targets are the last 2 weeks. He has 17 catches for 201 yards and a touchdown in that span. He's averaging roughly 12 yards per attempt. That's impressive for a dude who's 34 years old that most of us wrote off, healthy or not healthy, in this offense and at that age, he really wasn't going to do much. 2 straight weeks of 10-plus targets, 2 straight weeks of 8-plus receptions, nearly 100 yards in 1 week, 102 the next. This is a guy I want down the stretch. Dallas, Arizona, Tampa Bay for the fantasy playoffs. I mean, just give it to me. Give me all of the Adam Thielen down the stretch.
Dude,
I'm not going to call him a league winner. They lost Jonathan Brooks. We don't know when we're going to see him again. Retore that ACL, brutal. So they've got Chuba, they've got Adam Thielen, kind of Xavier Legette, and they're trying to develop Bryce Young. They're going to feed Adam Thielen.
They have to. The rapport between the two has made all the difference in the world lately. They can't do anything to go away from that.
Yep. We've got DeJuice saying Canales' job is safe. I believe it is. And I think as we're going through this conversation, I'm getting a little bit more convinced of that. We do have some fantasy questions, though. We can't go all off on just straight up football like we're ESPN here. Jason Ortiz wants to know, start 3 out of this group. Juwan Jennings, he's got Brock Purdy. Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper, highest scoring game, but Kincaid and Cole are back, which does concern me. We've got Pittman, Stevenson, or Isaiah Pacheco. He's got Garendo, but doubt he plays, and if he does, he's probably limited. So first, to the Garendo point, we don't know what Kyle Shanahan's going to do. He could go full Patrick Taylor even with Garendo healthy. We have no idea.
Yeah,
so I'm afraid of both of those guys in fantasy this week. If Garendo plays, I'm terrified of him. If he doesn't and it's Patrick Taylor, I'm not that interested in starting him this week. So out of this group, what 3 are you starting?
Cortland Sutton, just absolutely letting the world on fire with Bo Nix over the last several weeks. Just keep rolling with that for sure. Juwan Jennings also in a similar situation. The 49ers offense has been a little bit weird at times this season, but 2 things we're pretty sure of right now are that Juwan Jennings and George Kittle are going to get the ball. So I would roll with that as well. And then my third is probably Isaiah Pacheco. Look, he's good, and he's the starting running back for the Chiefs. And the gap between himself and Kareem Hunt continued to grow a little bit last week. Now that he's fully back from this broken leg, I think they're going to get back to the point where he's the majority shareholder of the backfield opportunities.
I think Kareem Hunt's borderline droppable at this point in fantasy because I do believe that Pacheco's going to take over that role. Like you said, like they've weaned him back into the offense. He's going to be fine. Jennings and Sutton, those are my other two. I'm with you on those. I like Michael Pittman, but against Denver, like there's no way I want anything to do with most of this Indy offense. I wrote up Jonathan Taylor as a fade this week for Fantasy Pros for their studs and duds. So I'm all out on that Indy offense. Not against Denver. He'll probably have a decentish week. He'll be like a far back end RB2, but he's not top 40 this week in flex. I can't see it. Jason also wants to know here, are we starting Jake Ferguson or Zach Ertz this week?
I know I was being nitpicky earlier about the reasons to not like Ferguson, but that was Ferguson versus TJ Hawkinson. Totally in this situation, Ferguson is going up against the Carolina Panthers, which to date has been one of the easiest matchups for tight ends. I'm pretty sure they're ranked bottom 5 in receptions allowed, yardage allowed, and the fantasy points that they're allowing to that position is just absolutely insane. So I go for that for sure. Not to say that Zach Ertz is a bad option per se, but Fergie's got that. He's got that on lock. I think he's going to have a good game. Just not better than TJ Hawkinson.
No. Ferguson situationally is fine with me. Just like you said, I'm not taking him over a top 10 guy, probably. Brad Bolt from Down Under wants to know, start drinking whiskey or start watching more draft prospect film. Brad, yes. Do both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, just
yeah, you can do it all. Jason Ortiz can't do it all. He's got to pick one of these to start. Herms, Jets D or Falcons D this week?
Oh, dude, if we get Desmond Ridder, like I know the Jets defense is a better idea, but
if we get Desmond Ridder,
exactly. The Desmond Ridder revenge game, like there's something I don't know. The Jets is the smarter choice. Don't listen to me. I'm doing this because I think the Falcons is the most fun. I don't think it's the best choice, but God, it would be hilarious.
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I've got the Falcons at 14 this week in my rankings. I've got the Jets at 8. However, if we start to get closer to Sunday and we hear that it's going to be Desmond Ridder in Las Vegas, they're not going to go all the way up to 8. But they might creep into my top 12 defenses. With Ridder, I could see him moving up 3 slots.
Yeah. At that point, the difference becomes negligible enough that you could choose to do the fun thing, or you could just. I mean, yeah, Jacksonville with Mac Jones is not going to be that good. So
no,
but you're right. Like, it could end up being closer than we think. So good problem to have. But yeah. I think we're both saying Jets.
No, Jets. Definitely the Jets. Yeah.
Unless you want to do the fun thing.
Unless you want to do the fun thing. Faith Enos dropping this one in. Nate with a beard is giving Steve Carell. I have not heard that one.
Low key though.
But I'll take it.
Like, I mean, it's working.
So
I'm just saying.
When Jen and I first met, she took me to Boston for my birthday. Like, I'm not even kidding, like 5 months after we met. So we go to Boston, have a whole weekend there. Our second to last night, we're in this bar that we had found called Beantown Pub, which is in the kind of like the financial district of downtown Boston. It's right next to the Omni Interlaken Hotel. And we just kind of lived there for the week. We'd been drinking all night. It was like 1 a.m. The Celtics had won. Everybody was ecstatic. And this dude walks up to me and he's like, yo, you're Ben Affleck. I mean, I don't know how drunk the guy was, but I was like, hey, that's a nice one. Steve Carell's not one I've gotten. So we're going to move on here. Glenn Brock wants to know, am I wishing they would just sit Breece Hall so I can play Isaiah Davis and not a productive, obviously hurt Breece? Why are they going to roll out Breece Hall, Herms, at any point the rest of this season? Why would you roll out Breece Hall? he's your most valuable asset moving forward.
I mean, some of these coaches are still hopefully coaching to keep some sort of role within the organization, no matter what happens. I don't know. That's a dumb reason. Forget I said that. I don't know. Brees Hall maybe cares. I don't know. I'm searching for some reason. I'm clearly coming up with nothing. There's no good reason. There legitimately is. I tried to be fair. It didn't work. But yeah, if Brees Hall wants to play, he's going to play, though. That's kind of, I guess that's what it boils down to. And, Aaron Rodgers clearly wants to play. Because, actually, well, there you go. Here's a better read of that. I think maybe more of what I was trying to get at is the fact that, some of these players, especially ones with really solid roles, are going to want to be able to continue to showcase all of this stuff so that way, no matter who comes in, there's not going to be any sort of temptation to be like, I don't know if I like what I saw to that guy. Maybe we could reduce his workload and give something to somebody else doing whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's a reason. Because I've never played in the NFL before, so I don't know what the motivation is for players on shitty teams.
Sure.
At the end of the year.
I do.
That's hard to imagine, but you're still a competitor. So,
and that's what I was going to say. The competitor spirit, and I don't care if I'm on a shitty team or not. I'm still going to work hard just because I take pride in my end product. If the team's end product isn't great, at least I hit 100 dingers. That's not a real number. God, I sound like my college stats teacher. So there are 3,400 teams in Major League Baseball. We're going to move on to the juice. Brian Thomas or Calvin Ridley this week in full PPR, Herms?
BTJ has definitely been solid of late. I don't want to sell him short for that, but Calvin Ridley is going to be going up against a just putrid Cincinnati secondary that has just given up so many points this year. No secret, but Herms, the resident Steelers fan on the show, so I keep tabs on what's going on in the AFC North and all that stuff fairly well. It's such an easy thing to exploit. Their whole secondary is toast. They can still apply pressure fairly well. The defense is not as cooked as I think people say it is, but definitely that facet of their game needs vast improvement. And Will Levis sucks. A lot of you kind of have to live with that, but he can at least launch a moonball or two, and that's what kind of led Ridley to relevance to begin with after the DeAndre Hopkins trade. So if we're going to see one more iteration of that type of performance, it would probably come this weekend.
All right. Next question here. Would you start Tracy this week or Braylon Allen if Brees Hall doesn't play? That being Tyrone Tracy of the New York Giants. We've got the Giants this week who are up against the Baltimore Ravens. They've got them at home. The Jets are up against Jacksonville in Jacksonville, as previously discussed.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Isaiah Davis split the workload, man. The allure of Braylon Allen that we thought was going to be there potentially didn't come to fruition. And that's not to say that he's not fantasy viable, but Tyrone Tracy at least does see a significant amount of the work. And also, I don't have the numbers up in front of me right now. I'm going to try and search for them real quick. But Tyrone Tracy, one of the interesting things that happened to him this past week is that he just saw a crazy amount of receiving work all of a sudden out of nowhere, which makes sense considering he is a former college wide receiver who converted to running back to begin with. But
he had 10 targets last week with Locke as the full-time starter. 5 catches for 38 yards. Dude, if that keeps up, Tyrone Tracy could be that weird league winner that you didn't expect, like the James Robinson-esque type player.
Yeah, exactly. If you see enough volume, it doesn't matter if you're on a terrible team. That stuff works. This is a math game about football, not a football game about math.
Oh, exactly. Cardinals or Ravens defense this week?
Ooh, the Cardinals have been tough, man. They're somebody that I don't feel comfortable with anybody going. Who do they got? They got New England, right? I wrote that up for my Start Sit article. I think they're probably going to be able to get to Drake May. They're also their sack rate is also a lot higher than I kind of thought it would be for a team that I think still does need some help in the front seven there, but that's a different conversation for a different show. But yeah, with how often they're able to get to the quarterback, with how awful New England is at keeping Drake May upright, I think allowing like the third or fourth most sacks in the league this year, I think that from like a counting numbers standpoint, you're going to get a lot more out of it by accumulating those sacks and stuff like that, because that's what DST scoring kind of comes down to for me. So that's where I would lean.
Arizona has come on as a very good defense. Like Jonathan Gannon's whatever is working. His scheme is working. His program is working. Players are starting to buy in. This defense is markedly better than they were earlier in the season. And the matchup against New England, like you're saying, I think it's a cherry matchup. Yeah, I'm going with the Cardinals as well. Now here's another defensive questions. Cards or Kansas City defense, they get extra points for fourth down stops. Kansas City this week, their matchup isn't. They've got Cleveland.
Yeah. I mean, you can attack Cleveland in similar ways, but I think they're a much more functional offense than New England. Like I know interceptions are worth more than sacks in most TST scorings, but you're going to accumulate probably a decent amount of sacks just by starting the Cards. Whereas, like, you assume Winston's probably going to throw at least one, but you'd really have to bank on him having another repeat where he throws like 2 pick sixes, almost 3, like some sort of like crazy meltdown.
Right.
KC could do that to him. Like, I think that's definitely within the range of outcomes, but
I mean, the Harlem Globetrotters or the Washington Generals could do it to him too. So I don't know, man. Yep. Njoku or Andrews, full PPR.
Low key, the Giants do not allow a lot of production to tight ends, my guy. It's pretty weird. They rank bottom 10 in, I think, each category of like PPR points allowed, receiving yardage, and receptions. Like they're a stingy against tight ends, whereas David Njoku is just seeing the ball at this ungodly rate that you just have to go with it. It's crazy. Like,
well, plus Kansas City is the third worst fantasy defense in half PPR points to the tight end right now, 13 points per game. So this is a game where Njoku could feast. Look, Kevin Stefanski is one coach of the year for a reason. He's not a shitty coach. He was strapped with a shitty quarterback and a really shitty owner. He can make Jameis Winston work. It doesn't mean they're going to beat Kansas City, but it means they might be able to score some points and move the ball. Part of that will be Njoku. So I'm all in on Njoku. Now, this is a tougher one. Brock Lesnar or George Kittle. I mean, if Brock Lesnar, so let's put on our fantasy hats, like our Dream World hats here. Brock Lesnar in his prime is an NFL tight end. Right now, starting for Will Dissly just went out. The San Diego Chargers, they love to target tight ends. Are you starting Lesnar or are you starting Kittle?
My issue is that Brock Lesnar did play football and did bounce around a little bit on practice squads and in the CFL, but as a defensive tackle, I think.
Sure.
So he was always like too big to kind of like, if he was going to play tight end, he'd probably be more of like that Chris Manhertz type, the big blocker, the Mercedes Lewis, the kind, so like I don't think that's going to be super fantasy viable. So while I think Pete Lesnar maybe could have been decent at doing a very traditional tight end role, I would have to go with George Kittle because he probably has better hands. Definitely has better hands. Bo Nix, unless we're talking about the octagon, in which case,
well, obviously, if we're throwing hands, different story.
Exactly. So there's a difference between catch with these hands and catch these hands.
These hands.
So exactly, very close, commas, but very different.
Prepositions, they make a difference.
Exactly.
Jesus. Bo Nix or Kyler Murray? This is a 4-point touchdown passing league. I'm going Bo Nix, dude. I can't stop that fire.
True. Oh my god, I'm still laughing at how goofy that. I love this show. Anyway,
me too.
Bo Nix is somebody. So the difficult part for me here is that in my start sit article over at the 33rdteam.com, publishing tomorrow, little preview. I picked Kyler Murray and Bo Nix as starts. Like I'm really
Yeah.
So here's the case for Bo Nix. The Colts defense, in the last 5 games they've played, have allowed 252.2 passing yards per game, and have also allowed an average of 26 rushing yards per game to opposing quarterbacks. And like Nix likes to scramble, it's worth it. We literally just saw Drake May do it this past week. You can be a running quarterback on that team, so like that's chill. But the New England secondary ranks 31st in pass defense DVOA this year. They allow the 5th highest passing touchdown rate of any team in the league so far. It's like, dude, I'm betting right now this is the week Trey McBride finds the end zone.
I need him to, man.
It has to happen, dude.
Just do it.
Like, I think now's going to be the time, and I think Kyler's going to torch them. It's just a matter of, like, no, like, that's the case for both. I have Kyler ranked higher, so that's going to be my pick. But I think either way you go, you're going to get a really good starter this week.
All right. Well, I have Nix ranked higher. I've got Kyler at 12. I've got Nix at 8.
Ooh, damn.
I mean, really though, like at that point, it's like a 5-point difference. So unless you're in dire need of like those micro points, you'll probably be okay either way.
Damn, dude, I've got Kyler at 7 and Nix at 9. Like, I really don't know what to tell you.
Like, it really is a toss up for you at that point.
Yeah,
right.
They're both awesome, man. Like,
and who? Just to be fair, I want to highlight the kind of malleable analysts that we can be when we are presented with new information. We hated Bo Nix coming into the draft after watching him at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. We did not like him.
I think we hated him as a first-round pick. I don't think we thought he was like. I want to make that clear. Like, we think like he has talent. You know what I mean? Like, that was never the argument for us. I think we were just a little bit worried about like, top 10. I don't know. You know, I'm not really sure if I see that. You know,
there weren't a lot of people that thought that he was someone who was worthy of a first-round pick. We were wrong. Honestly, he probably fell farther in the draft than he should have. There are teams that could have really used Bo Nix this season. That said, I don't know if he's as good without Sean Payton. Is he as?
That's definitely a fair consideration. I mean, dude. Imagine if the Jets had opted against the whole Aaron Rodgers thing to begin with, and it had just because they probably would have ended up. Would they have picked a quarterback in this draft or the last draft? I guess, man, maybe that's a little bit abstract. But either way, yeah, like, dude, I am so glad to be wrong about Bo Nix. I wrote a really awesome article about him over at fantasypoints.com if you guys want to check it out. Like, he has stood up against his peers statistically so well. Like, it is astonishing considering how little he has to work with outside of Cortland Sutton.
Yes. And the running game's not good. It's piecemeal, you could say. Nick's had 4 interceptions in his first 2 games. Since then, he's thrown 4. 2 last week against Cleveland, which that's a really good pass defense. Cleveland's defense, their offense might not be great, but their defense is pretty good. So that's okay. And before that, he'd only thrown 2 others in that span, but he's throwing touchdowns left and right. And he's doing what he has to do to win. And I think that's the most impressive thing is he's showing that, like, that football intelligence, that football IQ that we talk about. As Caitlin Clark pointed out, apparently college basketball is full of low IQ players. And she was embarrassed thinking back. I can't wait to read that Time article.
I can't believe I had to play against all of these women, low IQ, very low. They don't even know how the ball goes into the hoop. The hoop-de-doop, scoopity-bop. Like that.
Oh, man.
It was such an off-putting thing to read.
It really was. We got Keith Tapp. This is not off-putting. Already starting Devon A-Chain and Tyreek Hill, who should he flex? We've got Khalil Shakir, Isaac Guerrero, Pat Taylor, Waddle, Adam Thielen, DeAndre Swift, Romo Dunze, Gus Edwards. This is a 10-team PPR league. Who are you flexing out of that group?
Khalil Shakir, man, like the game between the Bills and the Lions this week has the highest implied combined point total over under of any game on the slate for a reason. It's going to be a ridiculously high scoring affair. And I think that, like Shakir already sees the requisite amount of volume every week to be able to sustain himself. But even in a tough matchup against the Lions, because both offenses are so high powered, it's going to be back and forth the entire time, which necessitates a game script for just the heaviest passing that we're going to see possible, which is also what makes me feel good about like Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Like, I don't think this is going to be one of those weeks where Goff takes a back seat and only throws like 18 times or something. Like, I think every part of this game, except for maybe the Bills tight ends because the lines are a little bit stingy, but outside of that like little thing, everybody's super relevant this week. Like, I want to have as much of this game as possible.
Yep. Oh, me too. Tyler Sparrow looking for some clarification here. Both of us Hawkinson over Otten, yes. Both of us Hawkinson over Otten. Yep. Jason Williams wants to know here, Herms, Purdy or Herbert at QB2? He's got DJ Moore or Jawan Jennings at wide receiver 2. This is a half PPR league. So first, Purdy or Herbert?
I'm going Purdy on this one. Herbert, I'm a little bit nervous. Like, the Bucs matchup is pretty good. Like, don't get me wrong. He's in a spot that he could probably go off, but the efficiency just hasn't really been there. Disley's kind of disappeared at tight end. That's been a bit of a problem. And then even though he came back into the game, that leg contusion, it's a little concerning, man. Like being able to play, especially with it being his left leg, I mean, I can imagine I'm also right-handed. So, like that left leg, like you have to drive into that leg when you throw. Yeah. So, like, I'm not really sure how good I feel about a lot of that. So just from a health perspective, I'm going to say Purdy.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I've got Purdy 3 slots ahead in my rankings. Hurts or Daniels this week? I've got Daniels higher by 3 slots.
I've got Daniels at 5. I've got Hurts at 8. Like, the Steelers pretty stingy, man. Like, yep. I don't think it's going to be an easy game necessarily, but like I'm definitely gonna go with that. Also, real quick on the second half of the last person's question, I would start DJ Moore over Jawan Jennings. Same.
I'm with you here. Tron Force from 2-5 to 9-5 with a playoff bye. That's a comeback, man. I am impressed. Currently has the Broncos D, but also picked up the Colts D due to their week 16 and 17 schedule. Would you play the Broncos or Colts week 16 and 17? I'm team Denver Broncos defense. I don't really care who they're playing. They've shown that they can dominate anyone, but they've got the Chargers and the Bengals, who I think that they can dominate week 16 and 17. The Colts defense is okay. They're not the level of the Broncos defense. I'd ride with Denver.
I would probably do the same. Yeah, honestly, for all the reasons you said, I don't think I could say it any better myself.
No, dude, Vance Joseph didn't see this coming. And look, tip of the cap to Vance Joseph. You came here, you were a head coach, you couldn't hack it, you got fired. Denver was pissed at you. To have the balls to come back here and turn our defense into a top-notch. Go Vance Joseph. I love the man. Plus, he went to CU. Yeah. He played quarterback at CU. I don't know how many people know that. He was not a defensive player in college. Juice, guess the question is, do you trust Will Levis or Mac Jones more? I am definitely trusting, Levis.
Yeah, the matchup against the Bengals is just better. Like, even though it was kind of like I was saying earlier about when the question was asked about Calvin Ridley and how we feel about that, like, Levis stinks, but the secondary is terrible. So he might throw a pick, but he's also got a chance of tossing a few moon balls that end up being big scores.
Sure. Okay, we're going to move on to this one. 3P1C fail over on YouTube. Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert?
Well, I mean, I advocated pretty hard for Kyler Murray earlier with just how good the matchup is in New England. Their secondary so easily exploitable. I think that he's going to have a big one.
I've got them 11 and 12 in my rankings. It's a toss-up, but I'm leaning Kyler Murray because I think he has a higher ceiling. Bo Nix, Matthew Stafford this week.
I think we're both going to say Bo Nix.
It's Bo Nix by a long shot. Yeah. I've got Stafford at 16. I'm a little bit higher than consensus on him, but tough matchups, dude. He just comes out because he's a veteran. So I wouldn't be surprised if he had a top 10 QB week. I'm not banking on it, though, so I would 100% go Bo Nix. Brock Lesnar, are we talking WWE? Jamie, apparently we are. I don't know. Or I'm not a combat sports guy. You're going to have to talk to...
We're talking New Japan Pro Wrestling era Brock Lesnar. That's who we're talking about.
Well, wait. No, that I do know about. Scott White wants us to talk about fantasy. We really are.
Most of the time, really. I think we do a decent job.
But also, guys, to be fair, it is 11:36 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a late night show. We're going to do fantasy.
Cut us a little slack an hour.
Yep. I did not know that The Undertaker played high school football, but I'm not super surprised. We got a lot of people who loved the wrestling comments. Did you know that Lex Luthor played for the Packers from 82 to 83? That's a good one, Jamie. We love that one here. Let's see what we got here. PPR, Hunter Henry, Jake Ferguson.
Man, I mean, Fergie, I think for a lot of the reasons we said before, but like Hunter Henry also sees 1 billion targets per game. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to go wrong either way. It's just like the Panthers are just so bad against tight ends, man.
Yeah. Look, Hunter Henry is the wide. He leads the team in targets, receptions, receiving yards. He just is slacking on touchdowns. 9 targets, 8 targets, and 9 targets the last 3 weeks. I'm starting Hunter Henry. And if Jake Ferguson outscores him, I mean, I shot my shot, right? DeJuice wants to know Shakir or Uncle Rico this week.
I mean, I don't know what sort of bonus you get for the amount of footballs that travel over or around the mountains. So I think that's kind of a pretty important thing to consider. But unless you get bonuses for that, I'm going to stick with Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, no, me too. But if there's a point per ball thrown over a mountain, DeJuice, let us know and we can adjust how we feel about this here. Untamed Music, huge start sitter here. We going Tua or Sam Darnold this week?
Bro, Sam Darnold's that boy. Like, I swear, man, like, it's working, bro. Like, so in the last month, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in every single game and is the QB4 in points per game with 24.7 in that span, dude. Like, but Tua has also just been like slightly better. Like,
that's the thing.
Answer Tua, but I didn't want to say it without giving the proper praise to Sam Darnold because he deserves that. He really deserves that difference.
To the point where we're talking about, well, I mean, we aren't because we know the answer to this, but there are pundits out there talking about, is Minnesota going to sign him to another year deal and like keep JJ McCarthy on the bench? Obviously, they're not going to do that. But what Sam Darnold has done is earned himself a really good contract with a franchise that needs a quarterback. He's been great. Dude. Yeah.
Shout out Tennessee.
If they get a new coaching staff, yes, please. Sign me up. Brady Bell wants to know Zay Flowers or Adam Thielen at the flex, and then Baker or Stafford at quarterback this week.
Tell you what, I'll go with Thielen. Like, Zay Flowers is close, but because especially like the Giants secondary is pretty soft. Like, it's a decent matchup, but like Thielen has just been nuking it lately. Like, the amount of work that he sees from Bryce Young every week is just a little bit too good to pass up. But then Baker Stafford, boop, boop, boop. Check my rankings. Boop, boop, boop. That's a thing I can do. I've got Baker Mayfield at 10, and I've got Stafford at 13. It's close, but, I'm just going to go with my gut on that one. So, Baker.
Okay, so I'm all in on Thielen and Baker. Same. For everything you said. The Juice got back to us here. No bonus for throwing over that mountain, but for real, Shakir over Rico Dowdle. Yeah, I think that's pretty easy to say. Dowdle's flashed. He's looked good. I just think that Shakir has the higher ceiling at the end of the day.
I would agree in most matchups, but the Panthers' run defense is really bad. So, like, it depends on your scoring format. That would be my answer. Like, if this is PPR, go with Shakir. But if this is any sort of like half or standard, then you go with the running back. Like, I think they're very close.
Okay, so I was saving this one until the chat slowed down a little bit here. But real quick here, PPR is a scoring format for Shakir over Dowdle.
Shakir.
It's Shakir 100%. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So we cleared that up here. Jamie saying, Herms, fire, loving your threads. Where can I get myself a jacket like that? That's a Caps jacket, right? There we go.
That's the 47 brand. They've got a lot of comfortable clothing. So.
Oh, dude. Some of my favorite hats are 47 brand. Is this one 47 brand? Hey, check it out.
It is? Yeah.
It's 47 brand. Yeah. Fun fact, I got this in the Cleveland airport. The first time I went to Cleveland, I went there for a funeral. It wasn't super sad. It was a family thing, older. Spent like 5 days in Cleveland. Loved Ohio my first time. We get on the plane. We come home. We get off the plane to a voicemail that another relative who also lived in Cleveland had passed away while we were on the plane, and we had to go back to Cleveland the next week for another funeral.
Wow.
Yeah, well, the first time was Medina, second time was Bolivar. So, we mixed it up a little bit all over the place.
There you go.
Did you saw it? Cap sweater here. The Caps and Bullets Arena is in Chinatown in DC. I have driven by it when I was 13, which sadly was 29 years ago. I don't want to talk about it. We're going to move on to this question.
I will say, though, I'll be there on Saturday for the Caps game, so that's going to be a good time.
Let's go. That. You're going to be here in like a month, so that's going to be amazing. Yes. The Nate Herms show live from the basement of my new house. Woohoo! I saved this one is for when the chat slowed down, because I think this is a good little short dynasty conversation. Jamie wants to know, Herms, what are our thoughts on trade deadlines? If you paid for a league in advance, do you allow non-playoff teams to trade their aging producing running backs to contenders? I'm an advocate of no trade deadlines in Dynasty. I think it's a part of the format.
I got to get up for a second. Just please expand on this. I wanted to let you know so that way you wouldn't be surprised when I randomly wasn't on screen. But go with this. Go with this. I'm very interested to hear.
So here's my thought on it. And this is from an experience that I had in a league 2 years ago. We had a playoff trade, and it was Tyler Eifert and another player for another tight end and another piece. Both of these teams were playoff teams. And I had a manager reach out to me and say, that's not fair. Why do we still allowing trades? And this was a dynasty league. She said it wasn't fair and it was collusion. It was between a husband and wife within our league. I looked at the value. They were equal. Fantasy football, we don't have 53-man rosters, right? If you're in a normal league with not degenerate fantasy football players who want to have a 40-round draft every year, you're probably at a max of like 5 bench spots. When it comes to playoff time, that gets really rough. So if you lose a player, there aren't a whole lot of guys left on waivers. And if you have players who are still in, you're in your consolation tournament, you're trying not to lose the toilet bowl, you've got a punishment for last place, you keep people engaged, you can't get rid of that trade deadline because you're handicapping teams who need to make moves that just simply aren't available on the waiver wire. Imagine being in a league right now that has a trade deadline and you're cruising, right? And you've got Jordan Mason. You did all the right things, handcuffing him to CMC. But now you've lost Jordan Mason and CMC, and you're looking at your bench and you're like, well, I'm screwed. If only I could make a trade. Who does it hurt? Who does it hurt to allow that team to make a trade?
It hurts no one. And
it hurts no one.
And when people talk about stuff like that, like I've heard a lot of really good arguments for trade deadlines, or at least augmented versions of trade deadlines, where like once you're eliminated, you can start, finagling with your fellow non-contenders and stuff. But like, all the credit to the world to the people who put forth those arguments. I think that they have a lot of merit, but there's just like, we're adults, man. Like the way that I run the dynasty leagues that I'm the commissioner of, I try to keep it pretty laissez-faire, where it's like, we're gonna do our thing. Don't do anything egregious or stupid, and I won't have to drop the commish hammer on you. But like for the most part, if you want to do whatever, especially because there's a price to be paid for going all in and doing all of that stuff anyway, that I think gets overlooked because, I wrote an entire article about it. I've broken down not even nearly enough about the topic before, but like some of the, like the biggest takeaway that you can really bring to it is like, so what if somebody sells their farm of draft picks to go buy Saquon right now? Like it immediately hamstrings the hell out of their future, and it's going to bite them in the ass at some point. So it's not as though these people are just going to continue to get away with this permanently. So like, we're only really ever concerned about it in short windows. Like if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, who cares what people do with their teams? Like if you didn't win this year, there's always next year and the theoretical year after that's just existing in perpetuity, because these leagues are theoretically infinite in time. So just figure it out later, man. I don't know. Don't tell other people what to do.
So are you going to put your dynasty teams in your will?
Probably, the good ones. I think I'm going to let the rebuilders go into the orphan market, but definitely the contenders.
You don't want your family to see that shit.
Exactly. If I'm going to bequeath any of my fantasy belongings, I wanted to make sure that it's the best of them. That is very much the truth.
I want Jackson to have all winners.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if I'm going to hand him like 30 dynasty teams, they should probably be good.
You can teach him how to be a rebuilder, but don't throw him into the fire. There's no...
No, I don't know. I've thought about that. Like, should his first team be like an orphan? Like, we take over an orphan together, and I teach him how to rebuild a dynasty team. Because, like, do you start him from the bottom, now we're here type deal?
I mean, I think... Speaking as a former child, I would prefer probably to just have my own stab at it and just draft my first, because I think the enthusiasm is going to be, because I think like, unless a kid's at an age where they like, if your whole shtick with that is like trying to teach him delayed gratification, then like go for it.
Well, no.
But, no, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily.
I want to teach him how to work in the mill for a living. That's what I'm trying to teach him.
Well, in that case, give him the shittiest orphan you could possibly take over.
And make it IDP.
Exactly. IDP, you don't have any of your picks for the next 2 years. You're up a creek. It's waivers. It's
first rounders.
You got to grind it.
Your starting quarterbacks are Aaron Rodgers and Will Levis. Go.
You are going to school uphill both ways, my boy. Like, that is how...
Oh, straight up. Straight up. Speaking of straight up, this has been straight up fun, man. Lots of good questions in the chat. I very much appreciated it. It's been a great show, man. I've had good time.
I forgot to ask the thing that came up kind of organically.
What?
We don't have to have a full conversation about it, but
Sure.
just because we're getting to that time of year, I want to leave listeners with at least one tip for if you're in a dynasty league that's looking like it's going to fall apart or doing whatever, like how you should go about, broaching the subject of leaving, because that is kind of an uncomfortable thing for people to do. And I wanted to make sure we got to that before we got out.
Okay. Fair point. Leaving. So I've never actually orphaned a team before. I've just, all of the leagues that I have left have been because the league folded, which you and I had, I think, like 3 mutual leagues that folded last year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find owners for these leagues. I'm going to find managers for these leagues before I leave. That's the way I'm going to approach it. Like, hey guys, I don't have the time to continue with this. Just like life and kid getting older and whatever, and like I'm maintaining stable leagues just isn't one of them, but I found this awesome manager to take over my team, so you guys don't have to worry about it. And I'll probably offer to pay the dues for the leagues for the first year for the new manager as well, like, because look, with as many dynasty leagues as we're in, high stakes just isn't a thing in most of them, so it's like $10 to $15 buy-ins.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like you pretty much covered the 2 core things, is like be upfront, like tell people. Actually, no, that's probably the number one thing. Don't be the dude that's like, well, it's been real, I'm gonna leave, and then bounce. Because like if you're that guy, like that just kind of sucks. Tell the league in advance, like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving or whatever. Like, I'll stick around until you find a replacement, like whatever. Or if you want me to help find one, I'm more than glad to. And then the whole like offering to pay the next year's like I feel like that should just be a minimum. Like
it should be.
It shouldn't even be something that you like have to offer. Like I think that is something that you should just be doing anyway. I think there should be some sort of fee. Like even if you have a really good reason to, like if you leave a league, you should at least have your exit fee of like, sorry, I'm putting you in this position. Here's next year. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like I think that would not be terrible.
I do have 2 leagues where I joined them in the pandemic before I really kind of found like the full-on fantasy community and got into doing this for a living and whatnot. That I am probably going to leave with not even a word, but the people in the leagues are dicks. I still don't really know them. They were just kind of like these rando leagues, and I won one of them the first year, and it was like, oh, this is cool. I won the league, and I've stuck with it. And then I found that like half of the league blocked me on Twitter. So like, yeah, no, I really don't feel like I owe you an explanation at this point.
Yeah. So that's a slightly different circumstance. In that point, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah, right. Well, in those
fine.
situations, if it's a shitty, harassing situation, whatever. Jamie's in 26 dynasty leagues. He refuses to leave any, but I also want to keep joining more startups. That's the problem. It's the drafts are so fun. Charlene Erickson dropping in here. Jamie, you're a beast. He is a beast. She also said, hey guys, there a little bit earlier. She is trying to leave some leagues after this season. First time ever, but I went from 8 managed to 15 and I'm drowning. It's a lot. And it's a lot to do. Yeah, imagine waking up on Sunday morning to sift through 26 rosters. It's not great. Derek, though, he's got a question for one singular league. PPR, start 2. Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Khalil Shakir, Jaden Reed. I am all off of Jaden Reed as a consistent fantasy start right now. Can't trust it.
Same.
He's off for me. The other one I'm probably benching is, and I hate to say this, is Garrett Wilson.
It's a tempting matchup, but yeah, I mean, I feel particularly good about Devontae Adams this week. Like, I feel good about both. I just don't feel good about them, like especially in the context of this question. Like, I think you have 2 better options beyond that. Like, my answer, like, is not going to be Garrett Wilson. It's not because I think he'll be bad, but just mine's Higgins. Spoiler alert, but
yeah. Well, Garrett Wilson is an elite level wide receiver. They got hamstrung with a quarterback who is more interested in dark retreats and ayahuasca than he was practicing. He was also more interested in making a Netflix special. I tried so hard, Herms, so freaking hard to find that sideways Aaron Rodgers picture of him just looking like a complete dolt laying on the ground with his helmet on for our thumbnail. And I ran out of energy trying to find it. Charlene says she got carried away drafting in preseason. Dude, we've all been there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky in that I've only ever had to leave a handful. Otherwise, leagues folding and stuff has kind of gotten it down to a manageable number. But like, I'm definitely I'm interested in doing startups again this season. I definitely have room for more, but this is kind of the first time where I've mentally established a number in my brain where it's like, okay, I will do this much, but that is it.
We've got our one startup with all the kickers, the 15 kicker startup. That's the only one I'm probably going to do this year. I'm going to try and keep it to that at least. Charlene wants to know, though, Herms, how do we feel about Evan Ingram this week? Would you start him over Hunter Henry?
I feel pretty good about Evan Ingram this week. He's played 4 games, primarily with Mac Jones under center, and has a 22.6% target share and sees 22.3% of Mac Jones's first read targets in that sample, courtesy of something that I already wrote, which is why that sounded smart. But I do feel pretty good about that.
I've got them back-to-back 13 and 14 in my rankings. And that's just being conservative with both of them. I'm okay with it. I think it's a toss-up. Ingram, not probably. Ingram has a higher ceiling every week. Hunter Henry's the mayonnaise that Will Levis is adoringly throwing in the mayonnaise commercials that I just found on CBS Sports HQ streaming. They're disturbing. That's how I feel about Hunter Henry. He's mayo. He's boring. He's basic. He's got a solid floor, but his ceiling is like 2 points higher than his floor. I mean, if we're being realistic.
Yeah, because, mayonnaise's ceiling is aioli, but at that point, it's not even mayonnaise anymore.
No, it's not mayonnaise anymore.
I mean,
and really all mayonnaise is eggs, oil, and seasoning. I've made it from scratch before. It's weird. When someone showed me how to make it, it's like, that's all that is. And I eat it by the spoonful.
Dude, I mean, it is. Apologies to the guy who wanted us to only talk about fantasy, but I got to say, aioli, very welcome addition to anything. Especially, I want to say, probably at this point, my second favorite thing to dip in fries. I mean, honey mustard's still the GOAT for me. I'm always going to be a honey mustard boy. But a good aioli.
Okay. And I know the answer to this because I didn't cook once when you were out here last time, did I? No, I didn't make you a single meal. We ate out every night.
No.
Okay, well, this time I'm going to cook for you, sir. And I make the most badass Cajun garlic aioli for dipping, specifically for dipping with potato wedges and fries. So we will be firing that up. Jamie loves Hunter Henry. He's got Henry 7th and Ingram 12th in his early rankings. Charlie says we were also in the GOAT together, Jamie. Maybe a couple others. Who knows at this point? Dude, there are so many crosses of leagues. Jamie says mayo is gross, but I love eggs with an oil with seasoning. It's that white creamy consistency I don't mess with. I don't know, man. There was this Greek place we used to go when I was in high school, and it was in the middle of band practice, punk band, not marching band. And they had their secret sauce was 50-50 mayo and ketchup with a little bit of seasoned salt in it. So good.
That sounds great.
But the juice hates mayo, but I definitely use aioli on burgers. Yeah, that's where that garlic aioli was born. The juice. We love food on this channel. We talk about it a lot, intermittent with fantasy. I was a chef for 10 years. So before, in my previous life, I cooked a lot. I still cook a lot now. On that note, I think we're going to get out of here, guys. It's been fun. It's been great. What a show. The fantasy playoffs. We wish you the best of luck this week. We have more coming up, of course. We've got tomorrow, the flagship show with myself and Casey Kasem. Start sits. We've got post-waiver ads. We've got all sorts of stuff. If you've got questions, please drop in and check us out. And then on Friday, we've got DFS Live at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with myself and Mike Reedy. It's a great time. We're going to give you all the great main slate plays at every position. High value, medium value, those really like super low basement value players you can get. And then live Q&A one more time with myself and Keith Fleming at 6 p.m. Eastern. Oh boy. We got a new subscriber. Thrilled.
Hey.
Great show, fellas. Did you subscribe? We appreciate it so much, man. Guys, if you have watched this show and enjoyed it, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be here every Wednesday night. Sometimes it's going to be more like that, like 10:30 Eastern. Sometimes it's going to be midnight. It just depends. Days are tough. We got Caleb Crawdad over there on Twitter. Hopkins, DJ Moore, or Darnell Mooney to get us out of here before I hit that button for the outro song.
Oh, Mr. Caleb Crawdad, like from that episode of The Office with the murder mystery. I do declare you should start Mr. DJ Moore.
Yeah, I'm 100% on DJ Moore here. I just don't trust DeAndre Hopkins, man. Like, I say he's old, and he's like 10 years younger than me.
I like him as a low-key, like, flex breakout. I have some numbers that are coming out about that. Well, I mean, if you go to 3013.com, you can find I put it in the rankings article, but, like, not over DJ Moore. Like, I know Minnesota is a tough defense or whatever, but, like, Caleb is going to have to garbage time YOLO the hell out of that ball just to keep it competitive. So, I mean, I still feel pretty good about it.
Well, they got one running back, man. Roshan's gone for now. Anyway, not forever, but they've got DeAndre Swift and I mean Travis Homer, I guess if you consider him. I don't. Don't start Travis. He's on the team. He exists. Yep. Well, guys, good luck this week. Make sure you check out the rest of our content moving forward here. Check out the schedule. Find us on Blue Sky at optimusfantasy.blueskysocial. I'm Nate Polvogt. That's C.H. Herms. We're going to get the hell out of here. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.